Guys, good to be with you. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. That's the name of the show. Yes, I need a haircut. I'm fully aware. The Von Reist Ruden record is what we are wearing. The chronograph Seiko movement built here in Indiana. Go to Von Reist, R-I-E-S-T-E. Go to vonreist.com and you can get your very own. Use promo code CATZ, K-A-T-Z, and get your discount. Also, that's my green for today. I'll have a Candela. You know what I don't have? I don't have the Filthy Hooligan from Alec Bradley, which I usually do smoke. It's an oldie but a goodie. You can never go wrong with the Millennial. So much to get to today. I'm not sure where to start, but don't worry. We'll figure that part out. Again, the haircut, I know. Look at that. That's just downright embarrassing at this stage of the game. We are here. We are ready. Let the day begin.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is losing confidence from many of his Democratic colleagues after he backed down during last week's fight over funding the federal government. One Democratic senator even tells CNN Schumer can't be, quote, trusted to negotiate with President Trump over the next congressional showdown.
Strong words indeed. For more on all of this, let's go live to our chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju. He's joining us here in the Situation Room. Manu, CNN has been speaking with dozens of top Democrats about Schumer's standing in the party. What are you hearing?
Yeah, look, there is a lot of concern, a lot of anger coming from the left. Really, you've not seen this level of public attacks against another Democrat, top Democrat.
As we said, it's not that we're smarter, although we may very well be. It is absolutely true that we are more honest about what is going on. And when you're more honest about what's going on, you're able to see around the corners. You're able to see what's coming. And it was very obvious, very, very clear that the political left has no leadership whatsoever. I mean, they're doing polling and people think that Representative Ocasio-Cortez is leading the party. Hey, if you want to get more progressive, you feel free. Let's see how this works out for you. Let's see how not applauding for 13-year-olds who have cancer. I'm sorry, black 13-year-olds who have cancer. Let's see how not applauding for them works out for you. Let's see how it works out for you for wanting illegal immigrant gang members of Tren de Aragua to be flown back instead of being dropped off in El Salvador, where the president there, Bukele, is more than happy to put them in his prisons. No. You keep doing this. You keep saying we want an open, porous border where you lied to America repeatedly about needing legislation you never needed, and then every single lie you told about COVID and vaccines and what it was going to do to us. And you kept people apart when it is obvious and it is clear from the reporting from Michael Schellenberger that everybody knew this leaked from a lab in Wuhan, and you refused to tell people. And then you invented science to ruin lives. My gosh, Senator Rand Paul is right. Throw Anthony Fauci in jail and do not stop. Tony Katz, that is me, by the way. Tony Katz today, 833-468-8669, 833-GOT-TONY. That's how you get to be a part of the show. I take you to the Houthi rebels, where President Trump ordered the airstrike. The Houthis are a group that is hell-bent on the destruction of Israel. There's nothing new about that. And the destruction of the United States. This is who they are. The Houthi movement, this Shia Islamist political movement, they're terrorists. That's all they've ever been. And for years, they have been involved in a proxy war where Iran funds them, and they have been engaged in an attack on Saudi Arabia on Yemeni soil. Yemen has been destroyed by this. Yemen has just been ripped apart. The Houthis have incredible capability and capacity. And I'm not discussing that they're somehow the smartest people out there. I am discussing that what they have is materials. What they have is the capability to do damage. This was Mike Waltz. He is the National Security Advisor on ABC.
Well, thank you. And the difference is these were not kind of pinprick back and forth, what ultimately proved to be feckless attacks. This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And the difference here is, one, going after the Houthi leadership, and two, holding Iran responsible. It is Iran that has repeatedly funded, resourced, trained, and helped the Houthis target not only U.S. warships, but global commerce, and has helped the Houthis shut down two of the world's most strategic sea lanes. We have, Martha, 70% of global shipping is now diverting around southern Africa, adding to the cost of goods, disrupting global economies, adding to or shutting off supplies to the United States.
If you're asking why, you need to look at a map. It's very, very important that you take a look. I don't know if you go to Google Earth or what you want to do, but you take a look at the Red Sea. And I'll be discussing more of this. You take a look at the Red Sea. The Red Sea separates Saudi Arabia on one side and really the whole of Africa on the other side. Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti there as it kind of curves into the Gulf of Aden. Right? So if you were to take a look, you'd be like, well, that's some pretty prime real estate right there. Yes, absolutely true. Some pretty prime real estate indeed. That area that we're looking at here, the Red Sea, at the top, you'll see where Cairo is. At the top of the Red Sea, you'll see where the Sinai Peninsula is, and you'll see the Mediterranean. That little cutout, that's Suez Canal. That is what saves billions, if not trillions of dollars for people, for everyday citizens all across the globe every single day. This is what is now being threatened. I shouldn't say now, has been. Because what's happening is right here in Yemen, what you are getting are attacks on ships, attacks on vessels with American flags or otherwise. And those attacks mean that instead of traveling the Suez Canal and coming down the Red Sea, what's happening is they're traveling the breadth of the Mediterranean. Well, I guess the Mediterranean just keeps going. And then down and around Africa to get to places like India. Instead of just crossing through the Red Sea, out of the Gulf of Aden into the Arabian Sea. What does that mean for costs? It means you pay more for absolutely everything. So not only are they increasing costs through their attacks, they're threatening Americans. They are threatening American ships. Joe Biden only ever engaged in small level attacks on these people. That's all he ever did. Small level, simple attacks. Nothing that could have made a strong difference. As the Secretary of State spokesperson Tammy Bruce noted,
the Houthis are pirates. They are not a recognized regime. They are not a recognized government. They are effectively holding Yemen hostage, and that's what they've been doing with the waterway there. is attacking shipping, attacking our ships over 100 times. It's been a kind of a constant death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. And people are wondering, it's like, finally, we're striking back. This has been going on for a very long time. The previous administration has done pinprick responses when the Houthis have attacked. But this is the first time that there is a real, genuine attack that is meant to have this stop. It affects the entire world, that shipping framework where countries.
This utilization of the term pinprick is not the first time it's been used. It got used by NSA Director Waltz, who you heard earlier. This is a much stronger attack, and good. Now, I saw some people like Congressman Thomas Massey saying, oh, sure, we're winding down Ukraine, and now we're going to increase the fighting with the Houthi rebels. I guess the war machine, the global, the military-industrial complex just needs to get its cash. Allow me to disagree with Representative Massey in the strongest terms. This should have happened months ago. I don't know what anybody was waiting for, but anybody who thinks that you can allow shipping to be impacted in this way, that's a little nutty. Now, if you're going to show me that shipping isn't impacted, I'll take a look. I'll take a look, but it would go against not just some reporting, because that can happen. It goes against every bit of reporting. Every statement's made. Every single one. But this is not as much about the Houthi rebels as it is about Iran and how Iran must be dealt with. And to say that, the Ayatollah has to be destroyed. I am not sure how MAGAville handles this situation, because they voted for somebody who would get us out of forever wars. I mean, that's part of what they voted for. They voted for this position on Ukraine. He's going to end the war. Even Trump now is like, listen, it was never going to end day one. I meant I was going to end it as quickly as I could. Did anybody believe he was going to actually end it on day one? I will admit, if someone believed that Trump was going to end the war on day one, that's a person who shouldn't be allowed a driver's license. You shouldn't be allowed to operate heavy machinery. No. If you believed that, you'll believe anything. You silly child. I'm going to bring down inflation on day one. Oh, good Lord. Nothing happens on day one except the firings. Firings can happen on day one. Executive orders can happen on day one. And we saw that. Inflation coming down takes more than a day. Ending a war? Well, unless you're really willing to do some serious damage to somebody in a 2-hour span, it takes more than a day. And now what you really have is an attack on the Houthis, which is an attack on Iran. What comes next? What comes next from this? How far is Trump willing to go? Because the Ayatollah is your problem. The mullahs, the hardliners, the clerics, they're the issue. So the question is, what are you willing to do? Because the only answer is the Ayatollah has to go. We've proven it. How many more ways do you need to see it? It's the Ayatollah, this sponsorship of terrorism is killing Americans, is hurting business, is creating trade issues, is emboldening terrorists. It's us or them. Is someone now going to tell me, the Ayatollah is not a bad guy? No, he's just misunderstood. We don't need to create a war. What do you mean create a war? We're already in it. We don't know that. Do we really not think we're in a war? Of course we are. This has been going on for years. You take a look at what happened to Israel on October 7th. You take a look at the porous border we had before Trump in the United States. We don't have cells here right now. Or, I'm sorry, are we all children? Are we all kids? Are we going to do this like adults? Are we going to pretend that we live in the real world with real world issues? Because we should. Of course we are. Are we in a war with China? Well, we're certainly in an economic battle with China. They certainly are not a fair player and an honest broker, and they should be treated as such. Are we in an actual violent killing war with Iran? We have been for years. And getting back to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, as Joe Biden did, was only giving them more opportunity to grow because you lessened sanctions and allowed them to profit. What an absolute horrific mistake. And I'm glad to see Trump correcting that. But sometimes you can only correct so far. You actually have to do the thing. And I don't know how MAGAville is going to respond to that. Let me go where I started. It is not that we are smarter, guys. I mean, we're pretty smart folk. It's that we are honest about what it is we are observing, honest about what it is we are seeing. And that allows us to see around corners better. It allows us to clearly address the story at hand. If you're going to go after the Houthi rebels like this, you are trying to limit the capabilities of the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is just going to sit back and see Hezbollah get decimated, Hamas get the crap kicked out of them, and now the Houthis lose. Oh, if the entirety of your existence is death to America, and America and their proxy feel that's how they would discuss it, right? Right? America is the big Satan, Israel, little Satan. Hey, look at me, I'm little Satan. I'm assuming that's the way they do the impression. I'm assuming, to the extent that impressions are allowed in Iran, they gotta push back somehow. They got to engage more attacks somehow. Somehow they have to do this. Of course, there's a real war. Of course there is. And people who don't want to believe this, well, they're entitled not to believe it. But, they're not the ones who are having an honest conversation. If you're going to go after the Houthis, you're saying you're going after Iran. If you're going to go after Iran, dear Lord, finish it quick, cut off the head, and then let's go have lunch. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. All right, what am I being asked? Andrew, no, I'm sorry. I don't think you have it right. Trump's approval rating is not historically low. I'm not. I don't think you have this right. It's not historically low. I'm sorry. I think you've got this all backwards, Andrew. I'm sorry. You should just go back and check that. Question is asked for during the break. Is there a chat room that the listeners could see, like you, Tony, where you see things combined from? Oh. That's a great question. So what Gettles Guns is asking here is that, so I utilize StreamYard, right? I don't know. Maybe there's a different service. Maybe somebody wants to pitch me a different service. Maybe they want to sponsor. I don't know. And so I stream to different Facebooks and LinkedIn, YouTube, X, sometimes to Rumble. Today, we didn't stream to Rumble. And so I see all the chat and other people only see their specific chat. So is there a way to see the full chat? All right, Sarah, why don't we find out? Is there a way to share the chat room with everyone? Is there a way to do this? I am not going to Twitch. That is not happening. This is Truckin' Pawpaw. Or is it Truckin' Pawpaw? Truckin' Pawpaw, right? First of all, welcome. I'm Tony Katz. I'll be your host. And by the way, that is Truckin'. Truckin'. That's spelled with a T. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're here. That would involve us utilizing a different platform altogether, wouldn't it? right? Like if I were to look at this on YouTube, like I guess we could just put it all there, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Good question. Good question. Right. I'm incorporating I can see all the chats. The question is, why can't I share this chat where I see everything? I don't think you can just sign into StreamYard and grab it. Maybe you could. See, but if I look, see, look at that. Now I'm looking at YouTube. Right? Maybe we could just use the YouTube chat and just direct everybody there. Kind of defeats the purpose of the chat, right? If you're chatting from all the places. But maybe that's what we do. And how in the world do you do a super chat? There's like a super chat feature, and man, I have so much to learn. God, Sarah, we gotta up our game. Good Lord. Anyway, the show is coming back. I'm Tony Katz. Glad to be with you. Trump's approval is higher than expected. And when I say higher than expected, you would think that it's bigger than a number like 44%. You would just think that it's bigger. But
first of all, the mood of the country, this really jumped out. We asked folks, is it on the right direction or the wrong direction? That 44%, you say right direction, that's up since November. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, the last time it cracked 40%, you got to go back to 2012. The last time it actually hit 44 or higher, January of 2004. So a lot of this is Republicans, but independents, that number is also up since the election on the direction of the country.
So the numbers right now on popularity are higher than Barack Obama had? Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. We'll get more into this. I believe those numbers go up when the astronauts are brought back home. The astronauts who are basically left at the space station, sorry, we can't help you. Yeah, the Boeing Starliner brought you, but it turns out Boeing sucks. And by the way, that kills me. Even Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, is like, we need some oversight of Boeing. And I always feel kind of oogie, the idea of government oversight. That's not the government we run. If Boeing fails, but nobody wants Boeing to fail. But what happened with the MAX planes, what's happened with the Starliner, there are massive problems. And they felt they couldn't bring back these astronauts safely. They were only supposed to be up there for a week. They've been up there for 9 months. And as the story goes, and it was Elon Musk who put that out there. What came next was this idea that Biden didn't bring them home because of political reasons, meaning you didn't want to ask Elon to have SpaceX go up and get him? Wait, is that the political reason? That in order to get him, you would have to ask SpaceX for help, and you didn't want to ask SpaceX for help? Do you know how insane you have to be? You have to be the kind of insane to leave astronauts at the space station. That's the same kind of insane as not standing up and applauding for a 13-year-old black kid who beat brain cancer. Oh, wait, right. I'm going to say it again. The party is completely broken. The Democratic Party doesn't know which way to move at all. There is another story worthy of our attention. And I guarantee some of you are going to be more angry than I am because some of you have much more personal connections. how the political left is trying to say, my gosh, we were misled about COVID. Is that right? Keep it here. It's Tony Katz today. Guys, welcome back. Tony Katz. Good to be with you. Tony Katz today. That is the name of the show. Our sponsor, Fletterman Von Riest, proud to be a brand ambassador for Von Riest cigars made right here. Watches. These are cigars. Von Riest are watches made right here in Indiana. But there'll be a story about watches and cigars. I can't announce it yet. I cannot wait. This right here is the Rudin record. This is their chronograph. This is a Seiko movement, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Rubberized strap. It does come in a steel as well, and love it. Love every bit of it. You can use promo code KATZ, K-A-T-Z, and get your discount. Von Riest, R-I-E-S-T-E, vonriest.com. And Sarah, we have a whole redesign to do. We've got so much stuff to do. It's nutty. Cuckoo as can be. And don't forget, April 17th, Trump and American Reset in 3 bourbons. Tickets.tonykatz.com. You got to come. You got to come join. It is going to be such a good night. The bourbon, the cigars, the food, the laughs. We're going to be taking a look back at Trump's first 100 days and how amazing in terms of the speed. What has worked, what hasn't. We're going to be honest about it. Successes, things that still need to be done. Was anything missed? The left's reaction, we've got it all. It's going to be a hilarious night. April 17th. There, it's a Thursday night, Kokomo, Indiana. So easy to get to from Indianapolis. Boop, right there. And if you want me to bring this to your city, I will. I will do that. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Get your tickets right now. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Buy tickets for everybody. Buy them for all the friends. Buy them for the whole office. A great office outing. Tickets.tonykatz.com. I hope you will do that. I hope you'll be a part of it. Come join us. Come back to the radio show right now. Good to be with you guys. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz today. Let us do our thing.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more times do you plan on deporting El Salvador?
Tom Homan. making himself a legend. Of course, what's being discussed here is the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Tony Katz today. So good to be with you. Find everything at tonykatz.com. And I'm going to discuss this. You have a deportation of Venezuelan gang members taking place. And you have the political left saying, you can't do that. I swear to you, it's like Blazing Saddles. Hey, you can't park that horse over there. And then here comes Tom Homan just to punch that horse in the mouth. Tom Homan, just a pawn in the game of life. That's a Mongo impression. Try and get that from another show. You will not. The left thinks that it's wrong to deport illegal aliens. They think it's wrong to deport these Venezuelan gang members. And there was this judge, James Boasberg, who said, you have to turn those planes around. You can't be sending people out like this, utilizing the Alien Enemies Act. Now, we'll get all into it about how the Alien Enemies Act is reserved for the idea of invasion. But Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution says that the nation will protect the states from invasion. And clearly we could take a look at gang members coming into the United States and harming and killing Americans as an invasion. The key here is who makes to make that declaration. When it comes to domestic unrest, you need application to the legislature, right? You need congressional approval, or the executive can move if the legislature is not in session. It doesn't say that regarding the idea of an invasion, meaning the commander-in-chief would be the one, this is my take, to decide what an invasion is. Not Congress. The leader of the military would make that call because they would have to respond to it even before they might be able to get congressional authority. I agree that only Congress can declare war. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But the idea that the nation can't actually repel an invasion until Congress gets together and declares it possible? Does that make sense to anybody? Because that doesn't make sense to anybody at all. This is just part of a larger story about the left and how it is they are desperate to lose. Because what they refuse to do, they refuse to say getting rid of illegal alien Venezuelan gang members of Tren de Aragua is a good thing. They can't bring themselves to do it. And they want their judge friends to abuse their authority, to usurp the election that brought Donald Trump into office and stop him from doing the things that he's supposed to do and was voted in to do. I'll get to that, but there is something larger here. There is a story here that is an obscenity. And the story here is about the New York Times. The New York Times had a headline. This headline is enough to make you scream. And I'm telling you right now, if you're driving, hands on 10 and 2. Although, admittedly, people these days, hands are on 9 and 3 because of the airbag. And I'm like, no, 10 and 2. Right? That's it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an opinion piece from the New York Times. And this opinion piece reads, "We were badly misled about the event that changed our lives." The New York Times had the audacity to state, we were misled, badly misled about COVID. The screaming I hear from you right now is not ill-placed. And what you're screaming, and so you know, look at the car next to you. They're screaming the same exact thing. What do you mean we were badly misled? New York Times, you're the ones who misled the country. We were discussing the idea that COVID leaked from a lab in Wuhan. We were the ones questioning whether or not a mask had any efficacy whatsoever. We were the ones questioning why in the world did I have to be 6 feet away from somebody? We were the ones asking why grandpa couldn't be with grandma. She took her final breath after 60 years of marriage. We were the ones saying, wait, do these boosters do anything? We were the ones asking about whether or not there were health risks of the boosters. And you guys told us to sit down, shut up, roll up our sleeves, and take whatever crap you injected into us or shoved down our throats. That was you, New York Times, and that was you, political left. Now, allow me a moment of full disclosure. I did not get bothered if people took the vaccine. I think it was a personal decision. Certainly, we don't have to call it vaccine. I get your point there. Go with me on this. I can argue based on doctors I have spoken to, people I know and trust. They absolutely believe to this day that in certain parts of the population, vaccines lessened symptoms and allowed more people to live. They absolutely believe that. I can also point you to people who say vaccines harmed this person and harmed that person and data wasn't given. I'm going to let people come to their own minds and I'm going to leave it be on the decision to take the vaccine and whether or not they feel they got a value. But the idea that you had to take a vaccine or grandma was going to die, no part of that was true. No part of that was ever true. That the vaccine would stop the spread of COVID, that's what Fauci said. That's what the left said. But no part of that was ever true. You had to wear a mask. University of Waterloo then, like a year and a half in, was discussing that, first of all, nobody wears their mask perfectly. And those masks that people made on their T-shirts did nothing. This is an aerosolized virus. And if you're wearing a mask improperly, the efficacy of a mask goes down to 0.3%, and everybody was wearing a mask improperly. Of course they were. You know how I know this? Because when you were eating something, you didn't wear a mask. Somehow when you were sitting and eating, you were fine. But if you were standing up, you had to wear a mask because it turns out that COVID only existed at about 4 feet and above. That's why it didn't really hurt children. 4 feet and above, you were getting the COVIDs. But if you were sitting and having yourself a burrito, you were just going to be fine. Not a problem in the world, except, of course, whatever it is the burrito did to you. Luckily, you'd be sitting down for that as well. And again, avoiding the COVID. We were badly misled about the event that changed our lives. I am surprised that hasn't caused riots. That is an obscene thought. As despicable a thing to say as anything I could have ever come up with. There's been a lot about how we are 5 years past the start of COVID. And my plan was not to do any level of kind of retrospective and look how far we've come. It's just not my want. But oh dear Lord, how could you not comment on this? This pure, raw, unadulterated evil. Maybe I sit in a weird place. I think I sit in a place that more people than not are willing to admit that you saw the vaccine get developed. You're like, my gosh, look what we can do. And we actually do these things. And we saw millions and millions and millions and millions of people take this. And yes, some people got affected and in a negative way. And the vast majority of people did not get affected in a negative way. Although the argument is we don't know necessarily how they're going to be affected. I'll give you an example. If you told me that a 53-year-old decided to take the vaccine, I wouldn't think anything of that. If you told me that a 72-year-old decided to take the vaccine and was affecting older people, et cetera, I wouldn't think anything of that either. If you told me you vaccinated your children, I look at you askew. and I have friends and they know this. I don't understand. I don't understand how you could have done it. We knew who the vaccine was. We knew what COVID was affecting, who it was affecting, age groups it was affecting, the comorbidities that were at play. Your children were fine. Your children were fine. Oh, and by the way, schools should have been open. Thank you, Randy Weingarten. You absolutely awful human being who doesn't give a damn about kids. The head of the American Federation of Teachers, that union, you don't care about kids at all. Stop going on TV and screaming at us. You are a terrible woman. You're a terrible person. That's right. I said woman. I'll say it again. Absolutely horrific. And you're responsible for kids being abused everywhere by not being able to be in schools. You did this. There's a place in hell for you, Randy. Good gosh. Vaccinate your kids. I got to admit, I have an issue with it. In the end, it's your kid, and I leave it there. I never understood that. You don't know how this would affect childbirth. You don't know how this would affect puberty. You don't know how this would affect other growth. You don't know. If you are already an adult, past some of those parts of your life, I can see it. Absolutely. I don't think it's so weird. And I think that's, by the way, a way a bunch of people indeed rationalize things. They put it into that perspective. I don't know if they admit that, but I absolutely believe that that's the case. In addition to this COVID story from the New York Times, this rewrite of history, by the way, because the New York Times is guilty of helping to push out the misinformation and preventing the flow of information that would have allowed people to possibly make better decisions. I give you Dr. Leanna Wen, who used to run public health in the city of Baltimore and then was the president of Planned Parenthood. I can't possibly think of something more absolutely horrific. I can't. I don't have the capacity to think of something more horrific, more awful, more terrible than what it is this woman says right here.
I mean, okay, so in public health, there is always going to be a tension between individual liberties and what's best for the group. That's just inherent in public health.
She is still making the claim that she should be able to decide what is good for the group. And if it means your individual liberties are stifled, trampled, punished, suppressed, well, that's just the way it goes. They're still doing this. They're still saying things like this. They still so hate you and so believe they should have power. This continues to be their subject.
I mean, okay, so in public health, there is always going to be a tension between individual liberties and what's best for the group.
There's never a time where individual liberties shouldn't be front and center. Ever, never, ever. Never once. As Michael Schellenberg points out in his reporting, the former head of the UK Foreign Intelligence Agency, MI6, told then Prime Minister Boris Johnson in early 2020 that the COVID virus escaped from the Wuhan lab. He's got it. He's posted it. Not behind a paywall, for everybody to see. Everyone, everywhere. And the New York Times now wants to say we were badly misled. No, they were not misled. They wanted to be misled. They wanted to be forced to wear the mask. They wanted this for America. Be angry. And don't let it happen again. I'm Tony Katz. You're just fine. You're just fine. Guys, good to be with you. Welcome back. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. What is up? Yes, for the record, working on my own cigar. I have been remiss only because I know what I want. And part of it has been trying to figure out who I want to work with, because there's a lot of good people out there to make cigars with. A lot of good people. So if I have it right, do I have it right that Caroline Levitt is doing a presser today? Let me see if I have that accurate. Yes, she is doing a presser today. Look at that. So that'll be worthwhile. And so we will share that with you. I'm glad to see everybody here and growing and doing. Don't forget Von Reist. Not Rist, Reist. Flederman, Fleddermann. Flederman Von Reist. Indiana made. That right there is the chronograph. It comes in a variety of colors. This is the green, so I don't get pinched on St. Patrick's Day. There it is. Right there. So vonreist.com, use promo code CATS, and you can be a part of getting a good deal, which is nice. And also, we do have sponsorships that are available. Low cost, high yield. That's who we are. See this right here? This could be you. This could be you right here. I'll just end up putting like a little TK. Oh, this is a sound panel. In case you were curious, this is a sound panel. So I've got one here, and then I've got 3 on the ceiling because we're cantilevered in here. So that's what that is. Really, really good stuff. Glad we got this done. It's well put together. Like that. Anyway, yeah, sponsorships are now available. We can make that happen. So we've got the presser with Caroline Levitt to get to. I have got more on the Democratic Party. Oh, and there's an Alina Habba story. I never really followed her or anything else. You know, I said what everybody else said. A very attractive woman, and if she's going to help Trump, good. But I didn't really pay attention to much. I don't get much into the cult of the personality stuff. What she is discussing right now with Andrew Tate, she brought this on herself, and I'm going to get to that story coming up. Oh, and the AutoPen. I'm all over the AutoPen. I got that. Let us get back to the radio show, shall we? The attacks in Gaza continue from Israel. I don't know if there's going to be any more ceasefire, but you are not going to see Israel allow Hamas to reconstitute. It's just not happening. And Netanyahu, the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is making a move on the head of Shin Bet, S-H-I-N. Shin Bet, that's the domestic security service, basically their FBI, looking for dismissal because Netanyahu is saying, I have absolutely no faith in Shin Bet at all. Shin Bet not only in charge of what goes on within the country, they were the ones with first eyes on Hamas. And when we talk about the attack on October 7, 2023, they're the ones who missed. I'm not leaving Mossad totally off the hook. I'm just discussing what is. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz today. With that, guys, I got to break a little bit earlier, producer Landon. I have to. I think I'm screwing up the stations with a break, a segment that short. Right? I gotta break earlier. So like at 47, you got to tell me. I think that's when we're going to do it. We'll do yes. That's exactly what I want. Sorry, I'm talking to producer Landon right there. Guys, we're going to take the break for a little bit. Get back to let the radio show break. We'll take the break. Then we will get back to Caroline Levitt, the press secretary, and the press conference there, and bring it all to you. I'm glad you guys are here. Stay right there. Smoke them if you got them. We'll be back. How come I don't hear the music? How come we don't hear the music? What's going on? Hold on. It's showing it's playing. Do you guys hear the music? We usually hear music.
New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep
playing? Nothing's coming out. Huh. That's odd. Oh, it is playing? Wait, you hear it, but we don't? Oh, that's weird. All right. I don't quite get it myself, but all right, we'll go back to it. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to interrupt. Here you go.
Happening from Mar-a-Lago, targeting some.
I find it very weird that we couldn't hear the song. Very weird. I find it weird that I've got this weird little hair thing going on. It's very annoying. I need a haircut. Someone asked me how if I leave the studio. The answer is yeah, I do. I'm not telling you where I'm going, but I do leave the studio. There's things out there. There's life outside your apartment. I just, the fact that I've got it here in my home and everything's set up. It's a pretty good setup. And no, I'm not. There was a while there I wasn't going out as much as I used to. And by the way, Tony Katz, hey, how are you? Tony Katz Today is the name of the show, radio show, as well as the live stream. We're going to have Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, doing her press briefing in a few minutes. We'll bring that to you. They are smart enough to wait until radio stations are back so they get the most amount of coverage. Yeah, the Biden people didn't care because they have no people in radio. So there was a while there where I wasn't going out at all. I mean, I was just one day after another. I was just very into it. And now I definitely do. I don't know. I just fell into a little bit of a rut. It wasn't a sign of anything. I'm fine. I'm good. Everything is terrific. We're working hard. We are busy. Don't forget, April 17th, get your tickets right now. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Trump and American Reset in 3 bourbons. You gotta be there. The first 100 days, how insane, how incredible. We're going to have bourbon, cigars, food. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Tickets.tonykatz.com. It's going to be a blast. I hope to see you there. Tickets.tonykatz.com. The press briefing. Let's get to it. Getting ready for a press briefing, people. What will Caroline Leavitt have to say, the White House press secretary? It's not like there's not, a ton of stuff happening, because there's a ton of stuff happening. If we take a look at just this weekend, the level of movement, which has, of course, been the big conversation about these first 100 days, the pace has been everything. And no one who has thought about it for a few minutes is truly surprised, because Trump has had 4 years to plan these first 100 days. And you better believe everything in you that's all he's been thinking about. All he's been thinking about is the first 100 days. I'm going to get in. I'm going to do this. 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 The only place I have felt so far that Trump has missed a moment is better explaining to Americans how tariffs are going to affect, what the purpose is, what it is we're looking at on the other side, and what the short-term pain is going to be. Tariffs or taxes. I think he should have explained it. He had every moment to, and they didn't hit it fast enough. Now, I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to look at secured the border. Biden had 8,000 plus crossings a day. Trump has 8,000 crossings a month. You have entire shelters, entire places where facilities where illegal immigrants crossing went to that are shutting down because nobody needs it anymore. We're better off. And this goes back to that polling that shows how Trump is doing. One of the things that is important to note in the poll is that it showed him at 44%. And you're like, well, that's not much. Presidents don't get 44%. The number is outrageously high. It's the highest approval Trump has ever had. And it goes along with the idea that people think America's on the right track. Now you say to me, but eggs are still too high. Eggs were up to $8 a dozen. And now $4.35. Double check me, Sarah. $4.35 a dozen. Now, no, I'm still not going to say it's at a great spot, but it's so much better considering last week it was $6.15. Things are moving in the right direction. Gas prices have come down a little bit. Not enough in my view, but they have come down a little bit. Where people, I think, are making a terrible mistake, inflation. Inflation is down. Whoa, 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 whoa. Inflation was down for a month. A month. You got to have 3 months. You have to have 3 months, a trend, in order to sit there and tell people that everything is somehow better, that everything is fine, that inflation is taken care of. You can't. Don't do that. Don't get over your skis like that. Don't put yourself in a position to have to walk it back. Do not take victory laps until there is victory. That's a mistake. And I don't think that one is so much coming from the White House, although they'll talk about things being flat on the CPI, Consumer Price Index, and the PPI side, but rather from those so-called influencers. I don't know why they have 900,000 followers, but no one ever questions the crap they put out. And is this accurate? Don't be bragging about bringing inflation down until it's down. Exercise a little freaking restraint. That's all you got to do. Exercise some restraint. Try and be normal for like 5 minutes. It's not too much to ask. But when we take a look at the polling, you take a look at the Democrats and how they're polling. CNN shows them at a record low. They're outrageously unpopular. Why? Because they're still talking about Trump and they're not talking about policy. They are not discussing, hey, here's what we're offering up and here's why we're a better option. All they can say is Trump bad. They have nothing else they can offer. Nothing. Zero. They have no argument to give. And then you take a look at people like Hakeem Jeffries. They have him saying that we've got Republicans on the run. What? Maybe the problem that they have is that the best they can do, the very best they can offer up, is Jasmine Crockett. Yeah, you're already smiling, aren't you? You're already smiling because you see her and you know she's going to say something dopey. And when asked by Jake Tapper about elections and Chuck Schumer.
You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way, we've heard that moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?
That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I would have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years, if we will have elections. And so I definitely think that younger, fresher leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on.
Did she just say we're not going to have elections? Is her argument Trump is going to end elections? Let me say this again for the people in the cheap seats. Go ahead. Go ahead, Democrats. Put her on more often. Go ahead and put her on more often. And let's see how well you do in an election, because there's no way it's going to go well. Time and again and again and again and again, you refuse to value the voter and instead value the hate mongering. You can't win that way. These people have learned nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, that's their problem. Looks like the briefing is about to begin. I want to bring you some of that, at least her first opening statement from Caroline Leavitt. But this is all part of that greater conversation about the Democrats are broken. I haven't even gotten into the whole conversation of next question. Oh, next question. When Hakeem Jeffries is asked about the leadership of Chuck Schumer, and instead of saying, I think Chuck Schumer's great, I like working with Chuck Schumer, we're going to do great things together, the radical MAGA extremist Republicans, he's always saying that. He goes, next question. He won't answer it. He won't answer it. And I mean, there's actually now there was a gaggle kind of chasing him around. Like, you're not, what do you mean you're not going to answer the question? How in the world do you think that this is all right?
Next question.
That was the next question. And then you've got all these people like, well, why don't you explain yourself?
No, not characterize my remarks. I'm not afraid about anything.
Another question.
I was very clear that we look forward to working with every single one of our Senate Democratic colleagues. Every single one of them.
Yeah, that's a cheap answer. You're not addressing it. You're a little afraid. The clip there from Daily Caller News Foundation, they had it. Meanwhile, Caroline Leavitt is speaking. Let's bring it to her.
Many have been destroyed. The president has been actively monitoring the situation, and the administration is engaged with governors and local officials to restore affected communities and livelihoods. Everyone impacted is in our prayers, and President Trump is fully prepared to assist state and local officials.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm the only one hearing that double audio or not. Oh, you got it too. All right. Let me see what I can do there. She's talking about the what's happening with the tornadoes throughout the Midwest, Arkansas, where he has declared a state of emergency. It has been an issue. I will get to that, and I will get back to you. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. What just happened? That's no good.
As a commander-in-chief whose peace through strength approach is unwavering and should not be tested.
Okay. Now.
Come on.
Nope, not that.
Houthi terrorists and their Iranian backers should not.
I'm not sure what's going on. Let me stop sharing that. Let me make sure I'm not doing two things at once here. That could have something to do with it. Let's get rid of that. That was just plain wacky. Share a screen. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Present, share screen. That's still not what I want to do.
in recent years, including the savage murders of beautiful Lake Michigan Riley and Jocelyn Nungray. President Trump brought Lakin and Jocelyn's family during his campaign.
Let me see this.
He would demand
We're
justice
testing it together,
for
guys.
their beautiful girls, and that's exactly what.
Is that audio playing right? Because that audio doesn't seem to be playing right either. Was that playing right for you, Landon? Yeah. Very odd. What in the world? I mean, it was all working before, and now it's not. Let me keep at it here. Let me see. Let me try this.
Just
No, man, there's a problem. There's a legit problem. Well, that end part worked. Let's now try this.
We just needed President Trump. All of these actions taken together are contributing to a wave of optimism about the direction of our great country. According to brand new poll from NBC News,
Nope, that's not it.
heading in the right direction than at any point since early 2004. Americans support President Trump's common sense approach that's getting our country back on track in record time. Meanwhile, the president's critics can't say the same. That same new NBC
Yeah, but I won't be able to
poll
play it
found
to the
that
live
Democrat
stream.
Party has reached an all.
I'm gonna try it over here. Guys, I'm so sorry. That is messed up. I don't know why that is not working, but it is not.
Who would have thought? Joining us today in our new media seat is Kelly Meyer. She is a White House
But
correspondent.
that still has a little bit of
with
echo
News Nation.
too.
News Nation started in 2021 and is one of America's fastest growing cable news
That's
networks
them.
with a focus on news for all of America. It's part of a larger ecosystem. Nexstar, which is home to News Nation, the political website The Hill, the broadcast network The CW, and local Nexstar stations. With that, kick us off, please, Kelly.
Thank you, Caroline. What do you say to Americans who want safe streets but are concerned due process is being violated?
The president is using every lever of his executive authority and his constitutional authority within the bounds of the immigration laws of our country to ensure that our streets are safer for law-abiding American citizens. And this administration is focused on detaining, arresting, and deporting illegal criminal aliens. And as you saw this past weekend, the president used his authority under the Alien Enemies Act to deport foreign terrorists. Tren de Aragua is now a designated foreign terrorist organization. And as I said, there were nearly 200 Tren de Aragua members who were sent to El Salvador this weekend. Countless lives will be saved because of this action. And if you talk to the families, the Angel families, as I mentioned, Lakin Riley and Jocelyn Nungray, they understand the grave cost of life at the hands of these illegal terrorists. And the president is proud to deliver on that promise for them.
And just to follow up on that, this will be challenged later today in the courts. Does the president, does this allow him to defy the court order without having this the checks and balances and the separation of power?
No, in fact, this administration acted within the confines of the law, again, within the president's constitutional authority and under the authority granted to him under the Alien Enemies Act. We are quite confident in that, and we are wholly confident that we are going to win this case in court.
That's Caroline Levitt discussing, of course, whether or not a district court judge, can tell the president that you can't use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to engage in the deportation of Venezuelan gang members. Tony Katz today, good to be with you. Caroline Levitt there, White House press secretary. The press briefing going on. Let's bring it back to her as that conversation regarding deportations continues.
Very grateful to President Bukele and to El Salvador for accepting these heinous monsters where they will face justice.
And if these guys are terrorists at war with the United States, is President Trump considering anything more lethal to address them than just sticking them on a plane somewhere else?
Well, it sounded like you had a little bit of curiosity in the premise of your question, so I want to address it. These are designated foreign terrorists. The president signed a proclamation on February 20th, 2025, designating TDA as a foreign terrorist organization that was in consultation with the Attorney General and the Secretary of Treasury. That was pursuant to 8 U.S. Code 1189. The president has the right to do that. And I think nobody would argue that Tren de Aragua should be designated a foreign terrorist organization. If you want to have that argument, I'm happy to do it. These are heinous monsters, rapists, murderers, kidnappers, sexual assaulters, predators who have no right to be in this country, and they must be held accountable.
And something different. There is now a member of the European Parliament from France who does not think the U.S. represents the values of the Statue of Liberty anymore. They want the Statue of Liberty back. So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country. Kelly.
Well,
is the administration
we'd also have to be grateful to France for helping us defeat
what
the
it
British.
was in terms of the time of
Oh,
the
this is going to
flights
be a
that
thing.
departed, that went to El Salvador.
It's going to be a
some of those
thing.
details that the judge is asking for in trying to determine the timing. Clearly, the 5 named individuals were not deported in compliance, but looking more broadly, wanting to know about the timing of flights and so forth, because the verbal order did say turn around the flights if there's an issue. So is the administration prepared to provide that information?
I'm prepared to provide it right now. All of the planes that were subject to the written order, the judge's written order, took off before the order was entered in the courtroom on Saturday. And the administration will, of course, be happily answering all of those questions that the judge poses in court later today.
What they want is to determine that the idea of the deportation is improper. It's wrong. How dare you? What about their rights? What about the rights of the illegal immigrant? The illegal immigrant has no rights. If you're here illegally, I don't want to hear it. I was on Newsmax right before the show started. And it's rare on that network, and they're lovely people, where sometimes I'm alone, sometimes I'm paired with somebody, but it's rare that you're paired with a Democrat. For some reason, they don't do that. They don't do the he said, she said thing, which is fine. And it's rare. It's even rarer when it's a Democrat who is aggressively progressive. But that was today. That when it came to Mahmoud Khalil, this guy from Colombia, who's a lawful permanent resident, not a citizen, he wasn't given due process. He wasn't given this. He wasn't given that. He didn't do anything wrong. You can't prove he's connected to Hamas. I can prove that he stopped Jews from traversing the campus. I can prove he was involved in intimidation. And a lawful permanent resident is not a citizen. The rights are fundamentally different. Secretary of State Warren Christopher, we're talking about what, 30 years ago? Did the same things that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is doing right now. Of course, these things can be done. And then she started talking about the Palestinian people. And I said, they're not a people and there's no Palestine. What are you possibly talking about? And then, we have to go. We're up against it. We're out of time. Emma and Sean are lovely. I haven't met them personally, but they've always been lovely to me. The moral of the story is that somehow the idea of the deportation is in and of itself unacceptable. And this is the progressive argument. Their argument is that the idea that you would engage in a deportation, consider a deportation, how dare you? You got to say it in Greta Thunberg voice. How dare you? Oh, I got to get that sound effect. I got to have that everywhere at all times. How dare you? Oh, she's so annoying. This is now their argument. The court should step in and stop deportations of illegal immigrants. And the answer is, nah. So with these planes, they were already in the air, already in international waters, if you will. I believe that's how Stephen Miller, an aide to the president, described it. That's Stephen Miller. And so they didn't stop anything. They landed, and now those guys are in jail. We're not talking about citizens here. And nobody is saying we are.
House these terrorists in maximum security prisons here in the United States of America. And I would echo the message of our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who expressed his gratitude to President Bukele and El Salvador's government for their cooperation in this deal. As for Russia, as you know, the president announced last night on Air Force One on his return from his very busy weekend in Florida that he will be speaking to President Putin tomorrow. I won't get ahead of those negotiations, but I can say we are on the 10th yard line of peace, and we've never been closer to a peace deal than we are in this moment. And the president, as you know, is determined to get one done.
The 10th yard line of peace? She's going to have to work on her metaphors.
Overnight, saying that the pardons that were issued by President Biden preemptively to members of the January 6th committee, that they're now null and void. Have attorneys here at the White House told President Trump that he has the legal authority to undo a pardon simply because it was signed by AutoPen, as he said?
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but we all know that to be true, as evidenced by his disastrous debate performance against President Trump during the campaign. I digress on that.
The AutoPen. What exactly happened and who exactly was in charge, and why does this conversation matter so much? We'll hit it on the other side. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz today. Yeah, I don't know what was causing that echo earlier, but let's get back to this.
Those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the president of the United States autograph without his consent.
Is on the record talking about
just is certainly better value
pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Okay,
Sean.
So I have a question on the timeline.
That's the answer, by the way.
About the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night at about 7:26 p.m. But he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing. A verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were?
Well, there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in court. Sean.
Hey, so on Friday, the president suggested at length that it should be illegal to criticize judges. But he has repeatedly criticized judges who rule against him, and Elon Musk is calling for impeachment of judges who have opposed the administration. So how are those two things not in conflict?
I have not heard the president talk about impeaching judges. I know you mentioned Mr. Musk's tweet, but I have not heard the president of the United States ask that. Mary.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about this video I saw this morning set to the tune of, I believe, Closing Time, about deportations of illegal migrants. What's the strategy behind the White House's videos they've been putting out on this? And can you kind of talk us through the thinking on these videos?
Sure. I think the White House and our entire government clearly is leaning into the message of this president. And we are unafraid to double down and to take responsibility and ownership of the serious decisions that are being made. The president was elected with an overwhelming mandate to launch the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. And that's exactly what he is doing. And to this very day, we are now, I think, 56 or 7 days into the administration by my count. The president still receives an overwhelming public support for the policies that he is enacting. So we are unafraid to message effectively what the president is doing on a daily basis to make our communities safer. And the specific video you referenced, I think it sums up our immigration policy pretty well. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions. First,
All right,
will
thanks.
President Trump put sanctions on Russia if the talks on Tuesday don't go as hoped? And secondly, have any illegal immigrants self-deported through CBP home yet?
To your first question, it's something the president has floated, and certainly he's willing to do if necessary. I don't have anything to read out, and I would never get ahead of the president on such a serious decision. To your second question about the CBP Home app, I would have to check in with the Department of Homeland Security, but it's a great question, and we're very proud to repurpose this app, which the Biden administration abused to facilitate the mass illegal entry of illegal immigrants into our country. It was like a fast pass at Disneyland. That's not happening under this administration. We are encouraging illegal immigrants to actively self-deport to maybe save themselves from being in one of these fun videos. Sure. John, good to
Coming back to the radio show, we'll take a little bit more of Caroline Levitt. I do want to dig into the AutoPen issue and controversy there. Curious where the argument is going to be that somehow we're not supposed to ask what happens if Biden didn't actually sign it. Let's get back to the show.
who are hated by the Yemeni people are all created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they haven't lost control. They are dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. That is a statement from the President of the United States just moments ago. I have nothing additional to share, but our message to Iran is you better take this president seriously. And I think the Houthis learned that the hard way this past weekend. As I said in my opening remarks, there's a new sheriff in town, and this president is not just going to sit on his hands and allow terrorists to launch attacks on commercial vessels and U.S. naval ships.
That is Caroline Levitt discussing the moves from President Trump engaging the attack against the Houthi rebels in Yemen over the weekend. Tony Katz today. Guys, an absolute pleasure. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com. I was mentioning that I never really followed Alina Habba, Trump's lawyer, right? I never got into, like the cult of personality game. It's just not who I am. Attractive. That's where I left it. She's going to help Trump in these nonsense indictments against him. Terrific. After that, I got nothing else to say. But it was the other day where she shows up on Benny Johnson's web series, and Andrew Tate is on the show. This is the guy who was accused of rape and sex trafficking. He's the guy who's the alpha male. He's going to teach your boys how to be real men. I don't care that he was a mixed martial arts fighter or anything else. I think he's a scumbag. There is nothing about him where I'm like, man, I wish my boys were really following in his footsteps. I'll raise my children, thank you. And I wouldn't let this guy anywhere near my children. You might disagree. I don't give a damn. Doesn't mean anything to me. I sleep fine. But knowing that my kids know that Tate is a tool, I feel better. Well, she was on the show with Benny Johnson and Andrew Tate. And for the record, I'm not a fan of Benny Johnson. And I'm not a fan of Benny Johnson, not because he hasn't created good content in his day, but he has also misused content in his day and not given credit to content. I'm not saying anything out of school. I can say this about my own content. Never mind others. I apologize for nothing. I don't appreciate it. I'm not interested in it. And I think less of him every time. Just for the record. Alina Habba goes on his show, and Andrew Tate is there. And she's calling him a real fighter, talking about how good he is with the media, and comparing him to Trump. And it's like, what is anybody watching or witnessing here? It's super, super weird. Well, clearly, she heard back that maybe this guy's got problems that she doesn't want to be a part of. Maybe, just maybe, what she should do is say, oops, maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't be lauding this guy, Andrew Tate. And so this comes up in an interview with the Epoch Times.
The accusations against the Tate brothers are stomach-churning. They are disturbing. And as I will say, and I've said many times since then, that is for the court to handle, and they should handle it.
Basically, people have told me you said you're a fan or something like that.
Yeah, that was what I said was it's some great manipulation. So the Tate brothers, have a tremendous social media presence in terms of, and what we were discussing were politics in the UK. He was talking about running, and I am always passionate about people that are vocal against certain things. Now, that is very separate. I want to be very clear than accusations of human trafficking, accusations of anything, rape, whatever the accusations are against them. You have to put that in one bucket. And that really is a very disturbing charge. Now, I don't know the status of it. I'm also a lawyer. I know better than to talk about somebody's case. But I will say that there is no part of me that condones at all that behavior.
You were very laudatory. Outrageously laudatory of Andrew Tate. And it was super weird. Now, somebody had argued that this is Benny Johnson's fault because he set her up. I don't know how that's possible. I really don't. If you didn't know anything about him, what do you have to say? If you didn't know anything about him, I would think that that's odd because certainly there's been news. I remember clearly that Trump had lunch with Nick Fuentes. And I said, I can't believe Trump didn't know who he was, but it's possible. His staff knew who he was, and his staff should have been fired for allowing that lunch to happen. Absolutely should have been fired. Without question, should have been removed. And I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I was amazed by that. I can't believe that you could walk into that kind of thing, having lunch with the former president at the time, and not know. Right? I think that's a fine argument that I'm making. I would defend it anywhere. Alina Habba did this to herself. Kind of amazing when people engage without knowing what it is they're engaging about. Why do they do it? What's the point of it? Makes no sense. And I can't find myself looking at Alina Habba and saying, man, do I feel bad for you. If Benny Johnson set you up, well, then say the words. Otherwise, the answer is, I didn't know what I was speaking about. Man, was I trying to be polite. Boy, did I screw up. And that's it. Leave it there. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. I just found it to be an odd statement. Well, yeah, no, I said this, but what I was really saying is, you see, you're manipulating my words. No one's manipulating anything. Sometimes you screw up. Admit it, move on. That's it. It's that easy. Also, that a little more legwork would have been helpful. Back to Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary.
Proof that you need to talk to people to sort of get things done.
I think so. I think the previous administration is the reason this war began. As President Trump often says, this war would have never started if he were still in office. It only started because of the incompetence and the weakness of the previous administration. And President Trump is very proud of the progress that he and his team have made in such a short amount of time. And hopefully tomorrow that progress will move forward. Sure.
Thanks. There have been some media reports just in the last few hours that the administration has decided to withdraw from the International Center for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression against Ukraine, which is designed to hold Putin accountable for war crimes. Are you able to confirm that? And if that has occurred, why has that occurred?
I'm not able to confirm it because I have not heard that. I will caution. I know there have been many inaccurate and misleading reports from Reuters lately, so I would caution anybody taking that seriously. But I can check in and get back to you.
Thanks, Caroline.
Let's get to the AutoPen. What is the AutoPen controversy and why does it matter? Well, it matters because there's a difference between the elected official and the machine. I will discuss coming up. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. So for it's weird as we're growing this thing, the trolls will come out, right? And you saw the comments there, and I don't know who the dude is. It means nothing to me. I'm just not interested in it. It doesn't add anything to a chat room, so get rid of it. And there's this weird thing that gets said when you block somebody from a chat room or you block somebody on Twitter. You're a snowflake. Okay. I mean, it's not true, but if that's what you need, you do you. Remember, the whole purpose of screaming at somebody, yelling at somebody, calling me names, do you think any of this is, do I just take my ball and go home? All of a sudden I stop all radio and all content and all the shows and everything else. I stopped developing bourbon. I stopped designing watches. I said too much. No. Nobody wants it. Nobody's interested in what you have to offer. And it's understandable that you need my platform or other people's platforms to say things because no one's listening to you. So you go where other people are being listened to, and then you engage that way. We see you. We get it. We get it. And it's sad. Doesn't matter. What's interesting is that I thought I did this right in the blocking, yet the other things were still popping up. So I don't know. Maybe it takes a while or whatever the case may be. It happens. It happens to everybody. I always think it happens to me less than other people, but it still happens. But honestly, there was one yesterday. You're so fat, you look like you're going to have a heart attack, and I could smell your fat sweating through the screen. That's very specific. I'm not going to lie. That seems fetishy. If that's what you're into, man. I pay it no mind. I'm well past the stuff. I had my one moment. It got televised. After that, I've been cool as the other side of the pillow. Live and learn, kids. Let's go to it. So what's the story with the AutoPen and why does it matter? President Trump putting out on Truth Social that the pardons of Joe Biden are null and void. By the way, I don't think that the president, just by a statement, can say such a thing. I don't think you can just decide that pardons of Hunter Biden and of Jim Biden and I don't think of the family, I don't think you can just decide they're null and void. Let me just say that as a matter, a legal matter. Tony Katz today, great to be with you. But there is a really solid question here, and I'm not interested in someone's politics here. I'm interested in the larger scale conversation about whether or not Joe Biden signed these pardons. Did Joe AutoPen Biden sign the pardons? Now, the AutoPen is basically, there are cards that the president sends out. They send them out to thousands and thousands of people. It's the AutoPen. It just prints it right out. What happens if that's used on something as important as a pardon or a piece of legislation? Can't one argue that without the president's actual signature, pen to paper, which is going to be weird for future generations that never learned cursive, how are they going to be able to sign their name? We'll deal with that later. If the president didn't actually sign it, is it legit? Well, the president wanted this and they had the AutoPen do it. I don't know. I think that as a matter of just rational conversation, there's something legitimate to discuss here. Because with Joe Biden, we have to ask the question, was he aware? Was he aware that it was being signed? America saw that Joe Biden was not okay. And it is obvious to those of us who have a rational mind that Joe Biden was not the guy in charge in the last year or two or longer of his presidency. Let's go back to when the Easter Bunny had to guide him away from people so he could, handle the business on the White House lawn for Easter. Literally, the Easter Bunny had to bring him along. Let's go to when he's there honoring American troops in Normandy, and he's talking to nobody. And Karine Jean-Pierre, the then White House press secretary, told us it was a cheap fake. It wasn't. He was talking to nobody. He wandered off stage and wandered off presentations. He had his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, leading cabinet meetings. It's very acceptable to ask who was running the country these last couple of years. It's very acceptable to ask if Joe Biden was aware of what it is he signed. But now that we know that in many cases he didn't actually sign it, we can ask, how does the rational mind not ask? Was he aware? Did he know? Was he aware that these Bidens, that these pardons were put in front of him? Nope, they weren't necessarily put in front of him. If the AutoPen was used, was he aware that they happened to begin with? Yes or no? Remember, it wasn't Joe who wanted the pardons. It was Jill who wanted the pardons. Wasn't that the reporting? Joe said he wasn't going to pardon his own son. And then he did. Or did he? Or did he? Again, I will state, Trump's point, or the point that people, whoever controlled the AutoPen controlled the presidency, that's a legitimate argument. If we're going to argue that Biden was not in his right mind. And we know this from the report of special counsel Robert Hur, H-U-R. That was the report that referred to Biden as an elderly man with a bad memory. That was the argument. We can't engage crimes against him. We can't go after him for having classified documents. He doesn't know what's going on. And that's why Republicans had wanted the audio, not the transcript, but the audio of what was said. And then Attorney General Merrick Garland said, you can't have that. It'll allow everybody to hear our methods. No, it would allow people to hear what Joe Biden sounds like when he's imitating a car and going, vroom. That's what we would have found. We would have heard exactly how far gone he really is. The Robert Hur report only gives us a small inkling. Maybe because he was a nice man with a poor memory, maybe Robert Hur went easy on him. It is legitimate to ask whether or not Biden saw these things. And I think there's a real case here about whether or not an AutoPen is the same thing as the signature from the President of the United States on any document. And I think that's a case that needs to be in front of the Supreme Court immediately. This is Tony Katz Today. Look at this. So, okay. What was my one moment? When I first started my career, because you're asking, what was my moment of doing something really dopey? I wasn't even starting my career. I was in Tampa, Florida, and I was doing some cable news nonsense political show because I was always had a mind for it. I just didn't know how to do it well. God, I haven't thought about this forever. It was, 15 years ago, whatever it was. And we're there on the set. And the guy I'm debating decides to call me fat boy. I don't know. Just what in the world is going on here? What are you? Boom and boom and boom. And I argue that the host knew this was coming and that questions were asked because it was a way to get one over on the conservative and all. I have, again, it's been a long time. But this happened. I left I walked off. And allegedly, a chair entered the set. I'll leave it at that. God, I'm such a different person. I can't describe it to you. I can't. Dumb. Very, very, very much so dumb. These days, I would be cheered for taking on the person who was fat shaming me. There's no excuse for dumb. There's not. I'm a guy who's got a lot of words at my disposal, and that's all I needed. And it was the last time I ever allowed in my professional life emotion to get the best of me. Never happened again. Won't happen again. I can't live like that. To be run by your emotions is ugly. And it was weird because I guess it was a slow news cycle. And the next day it was like, was it the top story, or it was it wasn't the top story here of Drudge when Drudge was a thing. It was like, it was in one of the columns, but there it was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? And now I'm like, I'm now going to build a career based, and that's like the basis. That's what people are going to use against me for the rest of my life. And then, I remember that Mike Tyson raped a woman. And they gave him a Broadway show and a cartoon, and they put him in The Hangover, and they call him Champ. I guess second acts are indeed allowed. Because what I did, nothing compared to what Mike Tyson did. But still dumb. And I admit that I'm willing to give people one. Like, all right, everyone gets one, I guess, and maybe they've had other ones, and if they're not public, all right, I gotta be the person to be like, all right, that's your one. But when people are like, they don't like me, and they're like, I'll call them fat, and that'll show them, that's the thing right there that'll get them to stop it. Ha 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 ha. Dude, man, if that's all you got, okay. I am not moved. I am not emotional. I got things to do. Brilliant, fantastic wife, terrific kids, good life, cigar in hand. This is not bourbon, by the way, even though it says probably bourbon. I got things to do. But it happened. And it was televised, and it exists. It's out there, and people want to use it against me all the time. Sure. If that snapshot is what you want to think of me as a whole person, you go right ahead. I can't stop these people, and I'm not about to try. But that was my story. Never let emotion, and I get emotional about things. I just never let emotion rule me again. Never happened again. And hopefully it never will. Keep at it. Guys, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you being a part of the show. I got to run. I can't thank you enough. A couple things to get to. First things first, Trump and American Reset in 3 bourbons. Get your tickets. Tickets.tonykatz.com. It's the bourbon, the cigars, the food, the laughs. It's going to be such a good time. Things that have happened in these first 100 days that you've already forgotten about, we're going to be talking about. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Going to be such a good time. And then get your watch at vonreese.com. They might not have this one, the Rudin record, on the site just yet. They will. They will have it soon. These are built right here in Indiana. I'm love what they do. Thrilled to be a brand ambassador for them. An Indiana made watch, Indiana people. This is a Seiko automatic movement, a beautiful movement for this watch. Comes with the steel strap, or you can get the rubberized that I have. Von Reest, Flederman Von Reest, Rieste, vonreeste.com, and use promo code CATS. Check out the Hanoverians. Very, very cool. Very cool pieces. Some great colors as well. You can check those out. Guys, can't thank you enough for being here. I'll catch you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.